Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. We are back and it's the week of NHL training camp openings, which, I think for hockey lifers like myself and everybody else on the panel, we welcome that. And because the season is getting closer, I wanted to mention the NFL games, but I'll let Russ start with his pre-show first. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I'm actually going to mention the NFL, not so much the games, even though Kevin and I had a good day, which we rarely have.
Yeah.
What I wanted to mention is, the last couple of years I've been writing more collectibles prospect articles, so more for football and for baseball than I really ever have. And it's rare that the Jets ever pick a guy that I want them to get. It's very rare. Mm-hmm. And so this past year, I wanted them to take Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver, and Breece Hall, the running back. I didn't know how they were going to do it. I just wanted them to do it. And they did. They actually took both. And, I almost dropped dead when that happened at the draft. I was just like, this can't be happening. And, of course, the first week, Wilson gets only 8 targets. He didn't even get into the game until like 35 minutes into it. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on? This guy's supposed to be your next great receiver. And they had to make up excuses in the Jets front office. Like, he doesn't know the playbook. And it's like, listen, my feeling was after that game, if he can outrun the coverage or he can catch the ball and run by the coverage, doesn't matter what your playbook is. Figure it out. And so, of course, this week he got 1 million targets and he caught 2 touchdowns and a game winner. And, it's been a long time since, the Jets have had some real playmakers who could do some damage out there. And it was nice that I actually, they actually took one that I wanted because there's still a fan in me, too, when I'm writing those articles. So, that was fun.
Kev, the Lions offense the first 2 weeks, 35 points in the opening week against Philadelphia, and they scored a bunch yesterday as well.
Yeah, there's a statistic floating around out there that really kind of speaks to the horror show that the Lions have been for my lifetime. Yes. This is the 3rd consecutive game dating back to last year when they've scored 32 or more points. Wow. So 3 games, 32 or more points. That hasn't happened since 1952.
Wow.
So that's 70 years since the Lions have scored, 32 or more. And you think about that sounds absurd in the past happy NFL of the last decade. Because 30 points just, sure, it's, that means your offense is clicking, but it's not unbelievable to get 30 points in the NFL. So
no.
Yeah. So no, they played well. Yesterday was such a strange day for the NFL, though. So much and just goofiness with fights breaking out and
the late rallies. The Jets scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute and 20 seconds, and someone who has been a co-host on this show usually had a response regarding the Browns that would be typical of me in terms of just saying F them, because I think everybody hates the Browns this year for the whole Deshaun Watson thing. I don't hate their organization. I just hate what they did.
Right.
But the thing is, they'll actually benefit if they I don't think they traded their 1st round pick for next year. So if they lose a bunch of games, they'll have a high 1st round pick. So it's actually going to benefit them in a way. But that game, I was watching the Arizona Vegas game, and I swear to God, if you looked at they shot the camera into the crowd when Arizona tied it. It was like these Vegas fans. This is one game. It wasn't like you lost the Super Bowl. They were like, oh my God. It was a bizarre week, and the bizarre week will continue tonight.
And just a reminder for those people who, when we did some picks about a week ago, I said I would take the money on the Dolphins. They're 2-0.
Yeah,
I'm holding on that. I'm telling you, they could win that division.
They're 2-0, and they have 2 fantastic receivers, but I still don't buy Tua as a good quarterback. He had 6 touchdowns yesterday, so you can't take that away from him. But Baltimore's defense is supposed to be good, and they sure as hell weren't good in the 4th quarter yesterday. But we'll see. First things first, the Bills have to beat Tennessee, and that's always been a difficult proposition for them. That's a team that has their number, and then it's Buffalo and Miami next week. And if if tradition follows suit, the Bills will bury the Dolphins. But hey, this is a different Dolphins team, so we don't know what the case is. And just one last thing. Aaron Judge, 58, 59 home runs yesterday, beats out Jimmy Fox and Hank Greenberg, who we all visited in the statue of in Detroit. Yep. He's one behind Maris. One behind Ruth, two behind Maris. I really hope he gets 60 before 154 games, because that's the asterisk note, and I'd like to see him do it. So okay.
Yes, I'm going to just throw out there too that for my money, the Miami Dolphins might have the best uniform in all of sports.
You know, it's a good uniform. I have to say, I grew up hating them, but I never hated the uniform. The colors are nice. I like those colors.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I like their white better.
Yeah, I love their white.
I like the turquoise one.
Yes, better. I like the white better.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I'll tie football to hockey and point out that Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley, whose name we all know, ties to the Dolphins because that's his favorite team. So he supports Russ Cohen's idea that they can win their division, although I think a lot of people support Russ Cohen's idea that they can win the division.
Right.
So,
where do you sit on their uniforms, Kevin?
I like them, actually. And I always, I had it's in my era when the perfect season and Zonka kick. I got caught up in that as well. I don't really hate any team, but I really actually enjoyed the Dolphins when they were running. And Marino was just so fun to watch.
You would hate the Dolphins with Greasy going to Marino and never really winning games for a long time. You would grow to hate that.
It's in Buffalo fans' DNA to hate the Dolphins because 1970 and 1980, the Bills lost.
Here, I have a probing question now that I have to give to Kevin Allen. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
There has to be something in life that you hate. You say you always laugh at Mike and I when we say we hate something. Name us something you hate.
I'm sure. I mean, there are things I hate. I don't hate sports teams because they win.
Name us just something you hate. As hard as that may be for you.
Without getting political.
No, I would not do that. There are the political things I do hate. Let me think about it. I'll get it, and right in the middle of the show, I'll blurt it out.
Okay. I don't need the whole show to list things that I.
It's quite something that you can't think of something right away, which I like. That's what I like about you. All right, here we go.
Kevin's very diplomatic. That's what
very nice.
Yeah, I am. That's true.
Very diplomatic. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, September 19th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and I hate.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen from Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. Sorry if I got a little bit cold today. My voice is a little bit out there. But we will do our best to get through this. And we are going to, if you are a Detroit Red Wings fan, you picked the right day to tune into the Hockey Buzzcast because we're going to get down to it. Before we get to that, we have other little rumors and things flying around of newsworthiness. But, Kevin, I wanted to know about Traverse City. What was it like?
Well, it was a good tournament. I always consider that the best tournament for the rookies because there's now several. It's a little less it's lost a little bit of its luster because, they're down to 5 teams now. They used to have 8 teams. Right. This year, they didn't even award a championship because of that. Like, you go into the Traverse City, Michigan Arena, they actually have banners of all the teams that have won that tournament. Like, they take it seriously up there. This is, part of their DNA and raises money, I believe, for the local youth hockey association. So it's a cool place to go. And, I got to see some good young players. The Dallas Stars, Wyatt Johnson, the Stanhope were both in the lineup, and you can understand when you watch them. They both have magic in their games and why they got taken. The Red Wings, of course, had Kosa in net, who I think it was important to him. I don't think he has really kind of won over the Red Wings. He wasn't very good in last year's rookie tournament. In the development camp, he looked a little leaky. He's been good in this one.
He was good. He was good today, Kev.
He was good today, and he only gave up a goal and 18 shots in his last outing. So I think that was important for him to kind of show the Red Wings why they took him, 15th.
He really is young too. I mean, he is.
Yeah, he is. But I think when you get taken as a goalie in the first round because it doesn't happen all that, there's a little more pressure on you. Like I think
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Red Wings, certainly aren't counting on him for several years, but they want him to look, like the part. Like, and I'll just give you an example. Wallstedt, the Minnesota Wild took him. He was the best goalie in the World Juniors, and Kosa, didn't even dress for the final. He wasn't the number one goalie. So,
that was the big debate, though, Kev. Like I was more of a Wallstedt guy than a Kosa guy. And in that draft, there were many pundits that liked Kosa better. And clearly Detroit liked him better. And I don't know. We're not going to know that answer for like 4 or 5 years, who was actually better. But that was a thing in that draft.
Yeah, for sure. Although I don't think Wallstedt, I think it was a 70-30. I don't think it was like 60-40. I think most people liked Wallstedt.
Yeah. And the suspicious thing there, Kev, is that when you never doubt Detroit's accuracy when it comes to Swedes. And they usually hit on most of them or a lot of them. And when you had a choice between a Swedish goaltender who was well regarded and a Canadian goaltender who was well regarded, they went with Kosa. So I mean that may call into consideration how good they think Wallstedt can be. I will find out down the line. You never know. But
I think that it really speaks to Yzerman feeling, and this is just total speculation on my part.
Yeah.
But I would guess that Yzerman's comfort level with projecting a defenseman and a forward is different. Like, I bet he relied more on the comments of others and within his organization for picking Kosa than he did for anything else. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Yzerman owns the first 4 picks he took that were, defensemen and forwards. I mean, they got Yzerman written all over them. He scouted all the players.
Yeah.
Kosa, I didn't feel that way. Like, he took them, he moved up to get them, but I didn't feel like he saw that guy and said, "This guy's my goalie."
That was an organizational pick.
Yeah, that was more of an organizational pick. It was kind of like it happened later in the round. That's my feeling. And I would say that when they took Vasilevsky, there was sort of a word around, they being the Lightning when Yzerman was there, that was Yzerman's pick. That he felt he had seen him and he watched him and he liked him.
Right.
Where I didn't sense that with the Kosa pick. And again, I could be wrong. I mean, maybe he loved the guy. I don't know. But, that's my feeling. But anyway, just getting back to the tournament, Kent Johnson, I thought really looked good. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's going to need some time, though, to just sort of adjust to the thing. Yurachek, I had a good long talk with some people around there, and it's interesting to read on him there. They think, and maybe, Russ, you feel the same way, they think he's for sure going to play in the league. Absolutely, probably will play a good long time. I think there's a feeling there that he's not going to get beyond the second pairing, that he could be a really good player, but he's never going to be a great player.
I haven't felt that way yet because I keep seeing improvements in him.
Yeah.
And they're not like monumental jumps, but they are. And like Mike said, he looked really good today as an example, or yesterday. I forget what he said. Yesterday. I think that's definitely true, but I still look at him like he has first pair potential. I think. And I think
I don't think he'd given up on him. I didn't mean to imply that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a question of what they're going to do with him right away. Are they going to put him in the NHL as an 18-year-old? Or are they going to let him play down in the AHL? Or is he going to go back to Europe? And we don't really know what their plans are with him right now.
I think it would be AHL or NHL. That's where I feel he's going to go.
And unusually, the only team that played against every team in the tournament was Toronto. They played today, getaway day against Detroit, and didn't play any of their top guys because they have a 7-hour bus ride back to Toronto, and training camp opens on Wednesday. I thought, the guys for Toronto, like Nick Robertson, I talked to him on Wednesday, or the media talked to him on Wednesday, and they talked about how strong he's gotten. He's worked on his upper body, and I didn't see any examples of that, like other than playing in the corners. He was a little tougher to knock off the puck. The guy who was the most impressive for Toronto was Nick Abruzzese. I thought, he played really well. He set up a couple goals, scored a really nice goal on, I think it was on Friday. He played in the NHL last year. He's probably going to start down in the American Hockey League this year, but I don't rule out the possibility of him and another guy, Pontus Holmberg, who they drafted in the 6th round a few years ago, being NHL call-ups, as well as this monster Curtis Douglas, who's 6'9" and is not a goon. He's a 6'9" guy who can skate and can score. He's not a big scorer, but with that kind of size and his mobility, I think he could make the NHL in a year or two. So there are some players, not top end prospects like Johnson, like Kosa, like Juracek, but guys who I think will be NHL players down the line.
The thing I would say about Abruzzese that's funny, and this is why I always tell people, just if you feel some way about a player or whatever, and you're writing about it, then you go with that. Because I was working with a company that when I had mentioned Nick Abruzzese, the head person there was like, he's not going to be a good player. I'm like, he is a good player, and he's developing. He's just a late bloomer.
Right.
I'm like, I'm convinced. I've seen him play all year. I've spoken to him. He understands that he's a late bloomer. Like, this is all coming together late for him, but it's happening. And this person's like, I've seen him a lot. It's not happening. And I'm like, okay, write whatever you want. I'm just telling you, if I was writing it, that he could be an NHLer. And I think Toronto did a good job of bringing him along because he always had speed. Yep. He always was pretty feisty, and he has a little bit of scoring ability. So this is, really a good pick by them. Like, this is not – I mean, he played for the Chicago Steel, and it's easy to say anybody from the Chicago Steel is going to be good, but a lot of people would have passed on him. So I give Toronto credit for it.
Interesting.
Let me take off my hockey hat and just put on my journalist hat and said the most interesting story to me, though, is that Tim Biakabatuka, if you remember him, University of Michigan tailback who had a 6-year career with the Carolina Panthers. His nephew, Jeremy Biakabatuka, who is a Quebec Major Hockey League, will be an overager this year, undrafted invitee to the Detroit Red Wings of all teams.
I couldn't I recognize the name, Kev, but I couldn't place it.
So anyway, I mean, I said right away to the Red Wings, I got to talk to this guy because it's that certainly everybody in Michigan. I'm sure everybody in the stands, saw that name and going, is he related? And, it turned out to be a really good story for me because, I said right away, I know you grew up in Quebec, so hockey's the sport there, but did you consider football? He goes, oh yeah, football's number one in our house, And, he said he played football when he was a kid. He was a quarterback and a safety. He's a big kid. He's 6'4", and everything else. But he just said, look, my dad didn't like the contact as much, He was sort of implying that football was a little more brutal than hockey. And so he said, he was pretty good in hockey, so he moved into hockey. But, it doesn't feel to me like he's, going to have a career in hockey. I mean, he's already going to be an overager this year. He had a pretty good year last year, but he hasn't been drafted. So, but it was a good story. Good story. Anyway,
let's get into the Red Wings first because we're right here. So I'm going to throw something at you, Kevin, that I've been waiting. Sure. I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to wait and talk to you about when we were on the air to talk about this, and that is the vibe that I get from the Detroit Red Wings. You tell me if I'm wrong. This team has been slowly building for a very long time. They have been. They were struggling a lot, and 2 years ago, in 1920, it felt like they had hit like a rock bottom, sort of, so to speak. Last year, at times they looked a lot better, but there were times last year when they also looked a lot worse. There were some really bad moments last year. I remember them getting blown out by Arizona at one point, I think it was. There was just like, and then Yzerman, who has been the slow build guy the whole time. We've always been like, patience, Mr. Yzerman. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It felt like maybe last year was the first time he was noticeably just not happy with the way things were going at Dow. And then this year, and for the first time in Detroit, went out and did some normal free agent signings like that other teams would do, like David Perron and Ben Sherratt, these guys, and that there's a little more desperation. Am I right?
Well, you're right about the anger. There's no doubt. Again, it's hard for us to know, we don't see Steve very often. And he doesn't, things don't leak out of his organization. Even when you do talk to people within his organization, they're all careful. You hear things like, that you should probably talk to Steve about that. Those kind of things. So it's hard to really know. what I would say is, I think these moves were made in conjunction with where Steve thinks the team is at. He's made it clear he doesn't think they're close. You know, he didn't make this moves because he thought they were going to get in the playoffs. I think he made those moves so that people like Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider will have good players to play with.
Right.
If you notice, he didn't give a lot of term out.
Yeah.
Which he paid the guys to get them to come, but there were no 7-year deals.
Well, I think about the longest deal he's given so far, right? To Andrew Kopp. I think that's like the longest I've signed.
Yeah. So that was one, and that's a special case because he's from Michigan. Yeah. They felt like they needed a number 2 center. Yeah. So they brought him in. But I don't know. I mean, it sure has taken a long time. I brought this up on other shows. Like, if you want to know how hard it is to rebuild from scratch, to do a complete rebuild, not the reset that the Rangers did, right? But a complete rebuild, or you can look at the Maple Leafs as well, because they haven't won in the postseason. Right. They did the complete rebuild as well. Yzerman has hit on 4 consecutive first-round picks. I mean, really hit. Now, his last year's pick, Marco Kasper, had his first game in Sweden the other night. He got an assist in that. But more importantly, almost all the Swedish writers are predicting he's going to have a strong offensive year this year, just by how he's looking in the preseason. So he's hit on all 4, it looks like. And yet they're really not even close to being, contender. And they know it. That the one thing they will be better at is defensively. Last year they gave up more prime scoring chances than any other team in the league. It isn't even close. They were averaging 12 significant scoring chances given up per game. I mean, that's remarkable to give up that many scoring chances. So, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, and I know that, I have an immense respect for Yzerman as somebody who builds teams the right way. And the thing is, I look at them right now, and they have 11 unrestricted free agents after the season. I mean, some guys will be re-signed like Larkin, but like Tyler Bertuzzi stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, this is somebody who we've talked about in terms of him potentially being traded or them maybe re-signing him. I mean, where do things stand with him?
Well, I mean, that's really part of this. I would say the Red Wings are shocked that they don't have Larkin signed. Not surprised at all that Tyler Bertuzzi is unsigned. Right. But from the sense I get, and again, it's hard to know because Steve Yzerman has even told us that he won't discuss contract negotiations. That's not what he does. He said, if you want the player wants to talk about it, that's up to him. But you won't get anything from me. But I sense that Steve Yzerman doesn't buy into league-wide comparables. I think Steve sets his own salary cap, and I think that's the issue here. You're looking around, you're seeing what guys have gotten this summer, and I'm sure Dylan Larkin is saying, I need to be in the high 8s, early 9s, and Yzerman is saying, I see you in the high 7s. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's just a guess on my part, but we would have expected. I mean, he's a hometown hero. He's the captain. He's coming off a good year. Bertuzzi, we could have predicted. They've had difficult negotiations for contracts before under Yzerman. For sure. And I think a lot of people thought that there might be a little tension. But I can tell you, and I feel confident about this, the Red Wings like Tyler Bertuzzi as a player. There's no question. They want to keep him. However, I think there have been some, tension just with these negotiations that kind of irritate Steve. We'll see what happens there. The problem is I ran this by another one, my general manager, and I said, have you heard anything about Bertuzzi being available? He says, I hasn't. But he says, what I keep hearing from anybody is we got no room. He said, Montreal is trying to make several moves right now, and everybody's telling Montreal the same thing.
Yeah.
We can't move. We got nobody to move. We got no room.
I'll get to that in a little bit. The Joel Edmondson rumors I was hearing, but yeah, that you're right. They're running into that same spot. Now, I did a little research on Yzerman for this today, and so he had his first 2 years, and I'm going to compare his Tampa career as a GM to his career as a Detroit GM. He comes into Tampa. The first 2 years, they don't make the playoffs, right? But he does add a lot of players. Like he adds Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Point, Palat, Cirelli. All those main guys basically are there. That they come in those couple years when they're not making the playoffs, just like he's doing now with Detroit. The third year they make the playoffs, get eliminated pretty quickly. Fourth year they do a little bit better, and fifth year they go to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's Yzerman's career in Tampa. They lose in the Stanley Cup Finals, right? Yeah, they lose. But or did they? Yeah, they lose, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, lost to Chicago.
Right, they lose to Chicago. Thank you. This is Yzerman's fourth year in Detroit, right? This is 1920, and then 2021, 21, 22. This is 22, 23.
Right.
So this is the year that he's already a little behind in Tampa in that he didn't make the playoffs this year. This was the year he made the playoffs in Tampa and lost in the first round. But now,
but give him one thing, Ak.
Yeah.
In Tampa, he already had Stamkos and he had Hedman.
Right.
Exactly. No, that's a great point. And also, as we sit back and talk about the GMs that the people have the most faith in, he comes up number one, like on that list earlier this year, as which I thought was incredible. For a team that has made the playoffs for as many years as Detroit, he comes up as the number as the fan base is more confident in him than any other fan base is.
Sure.
So is he behind schedule right now, Kevin? A little bit. Do you think he's fair to say?
I think this is, first of all, he says constantly, there is no schedule.
I know.
So, like
there is though. I mean,
not to him. He said that, I'm trying to get better all the time. I keep making moves to get better, but he said there's certain things you can't rush building through the draft. It just takes time. I would say that we being people in Michigan thought they were going to be a little better than they are now.
Yeah.
I would say for that. So yes, I would say, maybe they're a little behind schedule, but I understand what he's saying. Like he's known that it was going to take time because he really is building from the chassis up. And he didn't really do that in Tampa. Plus that was his first, I think he does things differently now than he did in his first couple of years in Tampa because he's learned being in that school. I also think that he's thinking bigger than even being contenders. I think he's trying to build an organization that will, kind of a Tampa Bay Rays thing that just has a pipeline of people they're going to keep rolling through, that they can, be able to move guys out and bring other guys in. I think that's kind of part of his thinking as well. So,
but I can't help but feel, and this is just a devil's advocate thing to say here, that he is, he's obviously using the fact that Detroit loves him and that they're willing to let him do this to get away with. This is a hard word to do. I'm going the opposite negative end for a second, because I don't think anyone ever does with him. Like I feel like everybody's always incredibly positive, and I like what he's done, but this team is not better now than they were.
No, but
there is a reality to that.
But Ak, the thing is, and I want to mix Russ into this. I mean, the way he's building the wing. Yeah. I mean, I remember in 2012 when Norfolk was playing the Marlies, and he was the general manager of the Lightning, and he was basically, when they won the Calder Cup, he was salivating at the fact that they had Kucherov and Palat and all these guys in the American Hockey League that were ready to step up and step into the NHL, and those are the core guys of the team to this day. Or now Palat's in New Jersey. But Russ, this is not the same model because there was talent already there in Tampa. In a way, Yzerman had to basically burn things down and start afresh. And what he's done with drafting Seider and drafting Edvinson and drafting Kosa, and he's building this team through the draft and guys who are like free swings who he gets as free agents like Pius Suter and Kubalik. And so he's doing this on the fly.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, Tampa had Al Murray, who's one of the top 3 best drafters in the business.
Yes.
So that's a big thing. Detroit didn't have that. Detroit was having some mediocre drafts before Yzerman got there.
Yeah, he hired Murray too. That's important to know.
Yeah.
Right.
So, And Murray is just amazing. So that is a great hire, and he's been tremendous. So that's one thing. But he's been tremendous in other places too. The other thing is he made sure he had his inner circle. So Yzerman's got his inner circle. I see them when I'm at the the USHL tournament every year. They're at a lot of games. They have a good reach. So there's that. And then there's I think Yzerman looks for players to fit in certain spots for them. So like as an example, when I was talking to Simon Edmondson, they're not having Simon Edmondson come in for his offense this year. They're having him come in because he's big and he can be hard to play against and physical and can transport the puck. Whatever offense he gives them will be fantastic, but they're not bringing him in to be like a number one offensive defenseman. They're bringing him in to fill in another gap that right now they currently don't have anybody good to fill, and he can do it. I think that's what Yzerman does, is he's sort of piecing it all together. And I think because ownership is not putting pressure on him to say, hey, you got to do this in 3 years or you're in trouble, it's allowing him to do it. And very few teams are ever allowed to do it this way.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not trying to rip him. I'm just trying to say that this is an incredible amount of runway. And for an original 6 team, I've never seen it. Like, I can't remember another situation like this.
But that's how bad off this organization was, Kev. I mean, they were really down. They had that 25-year long streak of making the playoffs, but they expended so many assets to keep that going that the coffers were empty, and the organization suffered because of it.
Yeah, they had no one coming. That was the thing. They didn't have a Hedman. They didn't have a Stamkos, and not only that, they didn't have any prospects that they were, the only player they really had were Dylan Larkin. And to be honest, I don't think Yzerman loved Larkin when they started. I think he's better about him now because Larkin has kind of stepped up. But this is what I would say about your point. I think you're right, but for the wrong reason.
Okay.
He does have license to kill. But he doesn't look at that. The reason he operates the way he does is his personality. I was there when Yzerman showed up as an 18-year-old. I saw his first shift in training camp. I've known him for a very long time. Yeah, he is a cocky, confident, arrogant, hockey guy.
I've heard this.
He believes strongly in his vision. And whether or not the ownership loved him or not, he would still act this way. He would do things his way because that's how he is. And if you want to fire him for it, he'll move on and go elsewhere.
Well, what's interesting about that, Kevin, is when I went through this and I couldn't find another one, tell me if I'm wrong, he's the only general manager in the NHL right now who can't say this is either my first job or I was fired from my last job. Like, he actually left Tampa on his own voluntarily.
Yeah, he did.
And there's no other GM in the league that we can say that about, right? That we can sit there and say that GM.
Chris Drury's not been in it long enough, but I mean, depends what you want the parameters to be.
Yeah. No, that's right. No, and the thing about him is he just looks at everything a little bit differently. For example, we've talked about this before, the idea of filling a need. Like, if you said that to him, you were sitting in a room with him, and you said, well, you guys need a center. Would you consider taking the center they did take this year? I mean, he would just laugh at you. He said, because he believes that in his heart that in the first round, you got to take the best player, regardless. It's like, there's no doubt in my mind, and Yzerman sort of implied this, but if the best available player this year at that spot in his mind was a defenseman, he would have taken another defenseman. I don't care.
I he would. I agree with you.
There's no doubt. Like, he would not even entertain the idea.
That's the right attitude to have. I mean, you're a year or two from competing for a playoff spot, so you take the best player available. And the thing that I love about what Yzerman's doing in Detroit, he's taking free swings with guys that he's picking up off of waivers or for next to nothing. Robbie Fabry off of waivers from St. Louis. Pius Suter and Kubalik were they were RFAs who didn't get qualifying offers. Wallman from St. Louis. These guys could end up being good players, and he's getting them for next to nothing. I love that.
Yeah, but I will say this, for all the good luck that everybody's saying Yzerman's having, he's had horrible luck in the draft lottery. to the point where he could have had even better players a couple times. Like horrible luck.
And he's been quite professional about it, although privately, I think he's really irritated about the system. He's been very, gracious about it publicly, but I would assume, and I know for sure that he does not support the current, draft lottery system. But it's better now in his mind because
looking back, they had 74 points. They had 74 points in 18-19, right? The year before he took over. In 1920, the year his first year, they had 100 and they had 39 points. I mean, they dropped off the map, right? It was just ridiculous.
Well, he clearly believes in tanking.
Yeah.
And he managed that team. He could have fixed the defense.
Right.
He chose not to.
Right. That's interesting.
That is his style. He knew he could have gone out and got some journeyman defensemen to make that defense more credible, and he just didn't do it.
Right.
And because one of their objectives was to get early draft picks. You cannot, build without getting early draft picks, and he knew that. So this was where they're at as part of what he wanted to do.
Right. Which is what he's done. He's always been. And he's always remained around that point total since he's been there. It's hard to sit there and say, obviously, points are so messed up because every year has been different, right? But that's around the same area. So roughly around 70-point seasons, if you were to work it all out if you extrapolate it out. But this year, to me, even though we sit there and say he doesn't care, he doesn't have any time. When I look at David Perron, he's never signed anybody like that before. That's a different kind of player for him to sign. Ben Sherratt, kind of a different kind of player for him to sign. He'd go out and get Mark Stahl, but he wouldn't get Ben Sherratt, one of the top.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, there is a method to the madness of what Yzerman did. Kev, you were saying all last year at the end of the year they were going to bring in a veteran defenseman to help with Seider and Edmondson. I mean, it only made sense. And Sherratt, can play both sides. He's tough guy. I mean, Perron. What they did is they brought in support staff. They didn't want to put all this pressure on Raymond, all this pressure on Seider.
Right. Like Kevin said, they wanted these new guys to have guys to play with. That's a really good way of putting it. I mean, Kubalik, I think, is a brilliant little signing.
There's no lose.
There's nothing to lose. Just 2 years ago, he was considered a possible rookie of the year. I mean, this is a crazy thing that they get him for what they got him for.
It's a lose.
And you look at his history, and Mike circled it a little bit. He rolls the dice. Fabre was a great example of that. Yeah. He brought in Jules Levy last year, tried him out. They looked at him and said, sorry, we agree with everybody else. The consensus is you're moving on.
Adam Ernie brings him.
There's a great story that's around. Neither the Tampa Bay Lightning staff nor the Red Wings had any idea that Yzerman liked Adam Ernie when he was in Tampa.
That's funny.
When he inquired on it, and Tampa Bay, they were asking each other, did Steve show any, special, admiration? And nobody could figure out what that was all about. But he came to Detroit, and he's their leading hitter. So.
No, there are, and I feel like they're rising at the right time. I think that Tampa is coming towards the end of their cycle. Boston's coming. Boston's maybe at the end of their cycle.
I think that's a little too strong that they're coming to the end. Of their, I think they're still. I mean, they still have Vasilevsky. They still have all the core.
But their window's not opening, Mike. It's closing.
It's
still wide open. It's still a wide open window, but it's closing.
Thank you. Okay, that's good.
Boston's window is closing very much. So we think Boston really is geared up for one season. This is Boston's season. They are going for it. All these 1-year contracts.
Boston's got storm windows up in a hurricane.
Yeah, they exactly. So one of the things I'm doing for my previews this year, and this is what I wanted to get from now on, we do team previews because I always every year try to come up with a new way because I get bored of doing the team previews the same way. Is this? I want a best case scenario and worst case scenario for each team. All right. So, Kevin, I want you to tell me the best case scenario for the Detroit Red Wings 2022-23.
Well, Husso is as good as he was last year.
Right.
which means that Nedeljkovic will play fewer games, which will mean he'll be less tired. He was actually good early, and then as the season wore on and he got wore out, he was not good. So they play well. Perone has a big year, and the continued growth of the young players, and they find a way to sneak into the playoffs. That's their best case scenario.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, sixth in the division. 80 points, 78 points, somewhere in there. Like they're better, they're more competitive, but they really, can't win.
Right.
That would be the worst case scenario. In fact, a lot of people have picked them as sixth in the division.
Yeah. I think these could be better than they were last year too. I mean, they could be.
Yeah.
This division is going to be a little bit better, but is there a alternate universe where Yzerman is in trouble after this season?
No. Not whatsoever. I mean, just to give everyone an idea, when Yzerman left to go to Tampa Bay, before he told anybody, he went to the Ilitch house and talked to Mike and Marion.
Right.
Marion still views Yzerman almost like a son.
Yeah.
I don't see he has anything but complete job security. And one other point I did want to make, and I think this is an important one about how he rules his team. Yzerman feels strongly that you have to earn your spot. He does not open spots and give rookies a try. He also doesn't want to bring a rookie up unless he thinks he can stay the whole year. Last year, Jonathan Berggren had a really good year in the AHL. You never saw him. He never came to Detroit. Fans were just stunned that Jonathan Berggren never got a shot at the NHL level, but that's Steve's conviction. And if Edvinsson, as much as the Red Wings and Yzerman believe he is going to stick this year, if Yzerman doesn't like what he sees, he'll send him down. He really will.
I'll be quick. Best case scenario, Edvinsson is a finalist for the Calder, and Detroit plays meaningful games in March. Worst case scenario, they finish 7th place behind Buffalo. I think they'll be better. And even worst case scenario, they'll be better in Montreal because Montreal's a train wreck. But if Buffalo supersedes them and has a better year than them, then that's, I think, a step back. But I think it's going to be Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo in that order. Is the 5, 6, 7. And but I think that I don't think either one of those things is going to happen. Maybe Edvinsson is a Calder finalist, but I think they're going to improve slowly because the veterans that they brought in, but I don't think that they're to the level that they're going to challenge for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I go with Mike's worst case. I'll give the best case. Best case would be like 4th place in that division. The Calder race is so deep this year. I can't put Edvinsson in it. I just can't. There's just too many.
No.
Top 10 for Raymond in scoring. Sider in the long list for Norris. I think that's your best case, and like Kevin said with the goaltending.
Yeah. Also a new coach, so that's another thing we have to mention too. That they have a new coach, that always does help a team in general. You'll see a little bit of a bounce from that, right? There's going to be some bounce from that. Are they 80? Are they, how many points are they, Kevin? 85, 6?
Somewhere near 80, I would think.
They were 74 last year.
Low to mid 80s.
Yeah, I would say 80 to 80. Well, if they really had an excellent year, maybe 84, 85. Yeah.
And again, that's not a statement about they could be a lot better and still get 82 points. I mean, the points aren't always how good you are, depending on last year. The Senators and Canadians Sabres were all pretty bad. This year, the Canadians could be pretty good.
Remember, the last year was the odd year that you had 100 point playoff teams. The bad teams are going to be better. So you're probably talking about 6, 7, and 8 in the East being like 95, 90, 94, 95, 96 points. So if they get mid 80s, they're only 10 points out of a playoff spot. That's not.
That's the way this whole league is. Like that's
my going after Yzerman was just to see where he is, exactly how much he is safe, like how loved he is. Because is there a point? There's a point for everybody, right? Like there's a point. If he doesn't make the playoffs in the next 10 years, he's not going to be there. Where is this point, Kevin? Where do you? How many more years does he make the playoffs?
I mean, I think after year 5, he has to look like they're ready. I mean, by then they'll have all those first round picks first 4 will all be regular players.
This is year 4, so then next year.
Yeah. So if Edmondson plays this year, like I expect Casper to come over next year and start out on the third line, and we'll see. I mean, they could shock us. I think what happened with some of the free agents, I think Sherratt was targeted. I think they had it in their head they were going after him. I think he's exactly the kind of player they wanted. They wanted a shutdown guy. They wanted a guy to give Sider some license to go and move the puck up a little bit. He didn't do any of that last year. Like he got 50 points without really taking any chances.
Right.
Because he was automatically their best defenseman. I mean, and he was good. So like who knows? And Perron is a terrific goal scorer, and what if he has a really great year? I think they got him accidentally. I think he didn't have the offers he thought he was going to get, and suddenly he was out there, and Yzerman shrugged one day and scratched himself and said, "Let's see what we can do."
Why not? I mean, I think I am a Perron guy. I've always been a Perron guy. I know that where he's played, he's been loved. Like people really do like him, and I thought it was a brilliant move, but it also felt like the first move to me that said there is a time limit on this. Like we do have to start making things happen here at some point. But maybe not.
There's some PTO news that we should talk about.
We need to get
these are significant ones,
and there's a big quote out there too.
Yeah, one is a little controversial.
That's my PTO theme song. Sorry, go ahead.
Sonny Milano signs a PTO with Calgary, which I think is a really good move for us because that's a team that I think lost some of their scoring.
Well, and I think they know that. Like I think you look at a guy like Milano, he could definitely add some points for them. So Sutter wants to look at him to see if he can fit in the system. That's smart.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Jason Demers with Edmonton, right shot D.
Give him a shot.
Give him a shot. Didn't really show a lot with Arizona last year. It looked like he lost the step, and exactly the quickest guy in the world before that. The one that I'm holding my nose on is Jake Virtanen.
Oh, there's a worse one than that, but that's bad.
Well, yes, but maybe I shouldn't because he was found. Maybe I shouldn't because he was found not guilty. So, but still, the stench of what happened in Vancouver, the fact that he had to go over to the KHL because he couldn't play in North America. Yeah. Now Edmonton's giving him a shot. I don't know. I mean, there's no doubt, Kev, he's talented. It's just you want to deal with the shitstorm that they're going to if he actually makes the team. I think he had a hard time getting a PTO, to be honest with you. I think some people are intrigued a little bit about him. But even beyond what happened to him off the ice, like he's never been the player that they thought he was going to be.
His speed was never there. Like he has a good shot. He's got some toughness, but he's slow-footed.
Yeah. And one interesting – I saw Kevin DuPont write this too. Apparently the Boston Bruins have said they have signed a PTO. But they won't say who it is or what position it is. So you'll know what it is. Well, the only reason why I find it interesting is because there's the name out there that we all know, and it's been linked to Boston.
Right.
And I think it would be fascinating if they had PK Subban in there
what a crap storm that'll be.
And when you don't name it, if you
know that you're bringing,
you may not name it because it is PK Subban. Because
I've got an alternate theory.
Yeah.
How about Zdeno Chara?
Not on a PTO. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I wouldn't know why he would do that either. So.
I mean, looking at the PTO so far, the rest tell everybody who's.
Well, the Flyers one really caught me by surprise. They're bringing in Antoine Roussel, and I get that John Tortorella knows him, and I also get that they have like 2 or 3 enforcers already on the team. Now someone's like, well, I guess they'll use them in Lehigh and bring them up when Torts wants more sandpaper. Like, listen, this team has so much sandpaper, they don't have enough paper. I mean, I don't understand what they're doing. I think he could be disruptive in camp, but I guess Torts knows him, so maybe he won't be. But it just makes no sense. It's like they just got out of rookie camp, and they have some rookies that are playing really well. Noah Cates is one of them. He played, some last year after he got out of college. And as an example, what if Antoine Roussel takes Noah Cates' spot in the lineup? It's like, what are they doing? It probably won't happen, but this just sends a bad message because now fans are really confused. One of them thought they're definitely tanking, and I said, well, I can't say that. I would say they were tanking if Roussel makes the team and he makes him over a player that's clearly offensively gifted or better, and then, you know, that would make no sense. But just to bring him in there when you have Delorier and you have Zach McEwen, it just doesn't make sense. He can't score, so why are you exactly bringing him in there?
Russ, they got more sandpaper than Home Depot.
Yeah.
But they also know that they're not going to be good, and when you're not going to be good in Philly, you go for you try to bring the Broad Street Bullies back. I mean, I feel like
it's a bad idea.
I don't.
Antoine Roussel is not a goon. Antoine Roussel is a cheap shot artist. He's a rat. That's what he is. Now
he'll make games. What he'll do is he will be in the penalty box, put them on the PK too much, and put a lot of pressure on guys that don't need that pressure just because he wants to stir it up and make it exciting for the fans instead of having like a young player develop the right way. It's just not going to be good.
Well, my first thought on that when I heard that was Tortorella knows him. He's doing him a favor. He's bringing him in. Yeah. He's got to let him be in training camp, hope that some team sees him that needs that kind of player and going in like that, you know. And that happens a lot more than people seem to realize.
He can also bring him in and say, "Listen, you're not going to make this team, but I might be able to get you some coaching spot somewhere somehow, and come in here and give these guys a real hard time. You know, like give these other guys, make it life hard for them too.
You got to remember,
he could do that. That's a point. No, I thought of that, and I want to say this about that, Eck. Guys are on edge already. They're already talking about it for the last 2 weeks about this being the hardest camp of their lives. The last thing they need to see is Antoine Roussel coming up and slew-footing them in a practice game or something. Like, I don't know if he'll do that, but I'm just saying, like, why – that doesn't add the right part of making practice hard to me or a productive part. That's what I'm
taking out the competition that way. What was the quote that you were talking about, Rob?
So Anders Lee came out, spoke to Andrew Gross, and said that last season's playoff miss wasn't a personnel issue. So, of course, some people have jumped to say that that's Barry Trotz. I don't think it's that as much as it could be a little Barry Trotz because he isn't there anymore. But I do think it's more of this is how we're defending, bringing back essentially the same team. Again, I just find the Islanders fascinating. I've never seen a team just batten down the hatches and just basically say, we will just return to form no matter what we looked like the previous year. And it's just like, okay.
In retrospective analysis, how bad were the New York Islanders that they missed the playoffs with one of the top 5 goaltenders in the league? Sorokin at a .925 save percentage, and they finished, 12, 13 points out of the playoffs?
But they were so wildly inconsistent. I mean, that's the other thing about that, Mike. You're right. I mean, obviously that you should never be in that spot, but they, were the best team in the East after February 1st. So they were that bad, and they were just that awful of a start, like an epically bad start that just can't even be. So to me, that which one are they?
But like I said before, whenever I hear they're the best team in the last 2 months of the season because they were so far behind, there was no pressure.
February 1st is a long way from the end of the season. I mean, that's a long way.
They were 25 points out of a playoff spot on February 1st.
Yeah, but they still had the best NHL. I mean, it's not like we're talking about 2 or 3 weeks, at the end of the year. We're talking about like 3 months. I mean, obviously there's the Islanders just, every team has its arc, right? And their arc, it seemed to be going up and up and up. And then the bubble was here and it get better. And they made it to the Stanley Cup semifinals and, here. And we kept thinking it's going to go up, but sometimes you just hit the top of it and you go back down. Your top doesn't necessarily mean the Stanley Cup Finals. It doesn't necessarily mean the Stanley Cup,
Well, I mean,
go ahead. Yeah, but Mike, the argument that X makes is the same one you made for Jack Campbell. I mean, the Islanders for a pretty extended period of time were a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Just that start, got them. I don't really know, and I could be wrong on this, but I think he is pointing the finger, Anders Lee, because the personal. If he believed the personnel was fine, well, what else is left? It's the coach. That the start. He could be alluding to the fact that the start.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
that's the other part of it.
Whatever you say, it's not the person.
But here's the other thing. I just looked it up. The Islanders had a new rink. So if we want to wipe away what happened at the start of the season, they still had the 20th best home record. It was 20-16-5. It wasn't great.
But that's an amazing record. I would never
It's
have
not an amazing record for home.
No, considering where they started, Russ. I mean,
it's not though. They're 20th in that.
But they didn't win.
That has nothing to do with the road trip.
I don't know. I mean,
Colorado was 34-7. That's amazing.
No, I'm saying, considering where they started. Go ahead, Kev.
Well, I agree with Mike. I think the whole Sorokin thing. That's why I said you don't discount them from, winning a lot of games in the division this year, because I do think they're going to be coached differently. I think the governor has been taken off the accelerator there, and I think we're going to see more offense out of them because of that. Yeah. And I do think they won't. They've been playing defensive for so long. I think they're still going to, still be strong in that area.
And they've added more coaches that Lou knows. They've added Lane Lambert's nephew, I think. He is now somewhere in the organization. John McClain's son is in there. And Corey Schneider is going to do something for Bridgeport.
And Russ, maybe
he's familiar with.
Maybe they have the same reaction that Nashville did, going from Trotz to Laviolette. All of a sudden, everything opened up offensively, and they have success. I'm just saying, it's a list of excuses. It's the road trip. It's Trotz.
No, think about this. Even from the list,
it's everything other than the team. And
but think about this. Even for these other coaches that they brought in, it's only inner circle people. It's only there's nobody coming in from the outside at all with the Islanders this year.
Listen, best case and worst case with the Islanders is just widely vast. It's good.
That's how it's going to be.
And here's the thing about Trotz: either he was holding them back, or he was making them better than they appeared.
Right.
And we won't know those two things.
That's very astute, Ek. You're absolutely right. And I think they're the real mystery team here. I don't think anybody knows we don't have any idea how good the Islanders are.
Yeah, right. And we'll know pretty quickly, because if they if what Trotz was doing by holding them back was making them better than they appear, and they should be, then we'll know that,
That's a great line.
If you unleashed the whole thing, Trotz was like, I would have unleashed the whole thing, but we would have sucked. That's what's going to happen. That we'll see. We'll find that out, right? We'll find that out soon.
Why don't we
quick rumors? Let's do a couple quick rumors.
Yeah.
Okay. So Joel Edmondson, he is definitely a player. He was just handed the assistant captaincy, so it's really funny that his name suddenly pops up in rumors, right? But he was a big reason. A lot of the Oilers, a lot of the Canadian people up there think that his missing the beginning of last year was one of the biggest problems with that whole season. That was they needed him in the beginning of last year, and they just didn't get it. His injuries, teams want him, but like Kevin said earlier, teams can't find money, and a couple teams that I've heard that have talked to them, Tampa. I heard as many as 7 teams may have talked to him, but only three names I could find specifically. They would be Tampa, Winnipeg, and Seattle, all with interest in Edmondson. Tampa's an interesting one for sure.
They're right up against the cap. So
they're right up against the cap, so something else would have to give there. But he is a really good. Now he's $3.5 million. The chances are, I was told that the Canadians would be way more likely to move him at the trade deadline because of that reason, because of his cap hit. But still, he's an interesting one, right?
Well, he also has to prove that, because last year he was out for a significant.
Right. He missed so much time. The other one quickly is Nylander and Sandin for Chychrun rumor is back in the rumor mill.
Yeah, high, very high. Okay, it does not make any sense for the Arizona Coyotes, who are bottoming out, to trade for a 26-year-old guy who's got a year left on his contract after this year. It makes no sense. Now, unless they're going to turn around and sign Nylander to an 8-year extension, you're going to give away, you're going to trade your best, arguably the best asset that you have, who's locked up for 3 years at less than $5 million, who's a top pairing defenseman, and you're going to trade him for a good forward, no doubt, in Nylander, and a former first round pick who has proved nothing yet in the NHL, other than
here's what I would say. Arizona's been in on some pretty good prospects, and they are collecting them, and Sandine is certainly among some really good ones.
For sure.
And maybe they're not going to get that 4-player thing that they're looking for out of Chikrin. So I do think that there is a possibility of that.
And the thing is, Zach, the Leafs have not been talking down Sandine. They haven't.
Really?
No, they have not.
I just disagree more than that. Go ahead.
All they're saying is he's played parts of 3 years in the NHL. He's been hurt every single time. He's got a lot of talent. They see a lot of potential in him, but he hasn't proven anything.
Right, that's incredibly complimentary, Mike.
Is he even in Toronto?
I don't know. I'm not talking.
That's the whole point.
When you're negotiating with somebody, it's not sweetness, flowers, and candy.
I know, but
what are the odds now, Mike? I mean, today is Monday. What are the odds he's going to make camp, like you said? And I said he wouldn't.
I still think it's about 50-50. I think there's a possibility he signs.
Okay, so now you're a little lower than you were before. You were more like
Russ, it's moved closer. I have 2 days, so of course the odds are going to lower.
Well, that's the whole thing, though. I asked you where he was. You don't even know where Sandine is. That tells me they're not even close.
Yeah, right. It feels like no team when negotiating with their players dislikes their players more publicly than like Campbell. Another example, like they have this ability to like just sit there and say that these guys are not that good, or even not like you said, you don't want to play him too much because if he has too good of a season, we'll pay him more next year. That attitude, I think, does kind of prevail sometimes, which is crazy because that attitude should never.
There was a consistency when it came to Campbell, when it came to the Leafs in terms of negotiations. They didn't offer him a contract a year before he.
Yeah, but even when he had a good season, they kept saying, he's not that. He wasn't that good. He had a bad.
Anyway, I mean,
Kevin, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I'm with Mike. I don't think this trade would come to being because it goes contrary to what Arizona has told people they're trying to achieve. They'll bring in a guy, and they've said consistently, and I've been told this by multiple general managers, that if we don't get what we want, we're just simply not going to trade him.
Right,
24 years old.
Right.
Or not. I think he might be 25 now.
25. I think he's 25.
He turned 25. Yeah. So, they know they have a valuable asset and they can trade him at the trade deadline. So, getting in, unless, they think, okay, we like the defenseman, he'll fit into what we're doing.
And they can get multiple assets for Nylander.
I mean, they could consider that, but, they've been pretty direct in that, we're just not going to trade them if we don't get.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it has to be exactly what they want, but that isn't even close.
They need some sizzle, though, Kev. They need some sizzle in this trade. They need to get something back that they can sell to people.
A deal
I don't think sizzle is what they're looking for.
Yeah, deal that would make more sense would be something like Robertson and Sandine and a first, and right. That because those are assets that you can hold on for 5 or 6 years at relatively low cost. They don't want a guy who's making $7 million who they have to make a decision on by next July, or he goes into free agency the following year.
That's exactly right. And I could see Chikrin going to Toronto. I just can't see him going in a deal for Nylander.
Right.
I mean,
right.
You want to talk to the defenseman, a first round pick, and whatever, Robertson. Then maybe.
Yeah, for sure. You got it.
Chikrin is 24, turns 25 in next March. So still
okay.
Yeah, that's not too bad. All right. That's really pretty much all the time we have for today. I think we're good. You got anything else? Anybody?
No. We'll save the coaching odds tomorrow, and
we'll save that.
Dallas Stars preview tomorrow.
That'd be good. Great. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for watching. Remember to read everybody's articles. They're out there. You can check out Russ's stuff always on Sportsology. Mike's stuff's out there. Kevin's stuff's great. Kevin's last week was just really such great stuff in the weekly reviews that come out on Fridays. It's amazing stuff. It's not just about this week too. It's about history. It's about what happened this week in history. It's just great stuff. And remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will all talk to you all tomorrow.